Hello and welcome to another My NT marriage video. We went on a road trip over the long weekend. We don't do a lot of things together. We have struggled to find a kind of interest that the both of us sort of mutually agree on. So even though he's sort of sporty and he does a few things like that, I'm not really sort of into that. He likes fitness. He likes to go to the gym. I don't really like going to the gym. I like dancing. He's not particularly interested. So we've been sort of struggling to find something to do together that we both kind of like. And what we decided on during COVID was to sort of find a spot on a map and then go to that place and go for a hike. So we went up to Omeo and then drove further into the high country, sort of up near Falls Creek. And we found a nice sort of hiking spot there. And from where we are, Omeo's about a 5-hour drive. It's a very long drive. And I've sort of gotten to the point nowadays where if I'm in the car with him, I don't talk much anymore. I used to kind of chatter. I think I just was like, the quiet kind of annoyed me, or it was sort of a fun time to sort of share stories and get to know each other and things like that. And over the years, I've not really cared about that as much. So I've started to be sort of more quiet in the car. However, it's a 5-hour trip, so we're going to be doing some talking. And the conversation just kind of flows. He talks about some flowers he saw on his last hiking trip and how he thought maybe he'd dig some out and bring them home for me to plant and grow. And we're just chatting away, general chit chat. But then we get on to this particular topic of he wants to build a shed. He's wanted to build a shed for some years now. It's not on the cards to happen anytime soon. There's all manner of reasons behind why that's not happening soon. But the first time he talks about it, some years back, it goes like this. I want to build a shed. Whereabouts should I put it? And so we start talking about this shed and nutting out the problems and the planning. We could put it there, but we've got this issue to think about. We could put it there, we've got that issue to think about. So we're just kind of nutting it out together, trying to figure out the best place for this shed. And I mean, in saying that, some shed building guy could come along and go, no, both your ideas are terrible. You can't go in any of those spots. Anyway, so we nut it out, no problem. Then the second time, months later, we have that same conversation, and I'm like, okay. And we nut it out again, saying pretty much exactly the same thing. And then he raises it again, and we're saying the same thing. And this is happening at least once a year, several times a year most of the time. And it's always the same. I'm thinking of building a shed. Where should we put it? Where should I put it? So we're driving along, and he says that. And I said to him, I don't really want to talk about this. We've talked about this dozens of times before. Not interested in having this conversation again. And he's agitated by that. He doesn't understand. He's like, I'm just making conversation. Why can't we just talk about it? And to me, it's like a complete and utter waste of breath. We have talked about this verbatim several times, and it's all irrelevant because nothing of it matters, because, as I said, the builder may come along and say, no, you can't build it there, or yes, you can. So to me, having another conversation about it, trying to nut it out, just seems pointless. But it was interesting from his perspective. He sort of sees it as general conversation, as though it's something that the two of us can both mutually take an interest in and converse over. Yeah, so I get annoyed and he doesn't understand my annoyance, and he just thinks we should just generally chit chat about this for the 10th time. Anyway, so I go quiet for a bit. A little bit later we start talking about something else, and it flows into this conversation and that conversation, yada yada. And somehow or another we get onto the conversation of him, his brothers, and the sisters-in-laws and things like this, and the similarities between the marriages, the differences, you know, just kind of general chit-chat about wondering what their lives are like. And then randomly he throws this comment out there and he says, I wonder if I'd have fared better if I'd have married ex-sister-in-law instead of me. Because she's really neat. Count to 10. I am instantly triggered by that because I was never not neat. And it just took me back to, I've told you before, the housework saga, when we moved into the new house and then suddenly nothing I did was good enough and everything was an issue, and even if the house was immaculate, he'd find this one thing that wasn't done and pick on it. And it just drove me insane. As you can imagine, I was like, dude, stop your complaining. There is nothing wrong with the house. There's nothing wrong with my ability to clean it. There is nothing wrong with me. I'm not sloth. Stop talking about it. And so, as I've mentioned before, he's been less critical. And then we have this conversation in the car where he says, I would have got along better with her because she's neat. So I'm there trying to be diplomatic and not lose my temper. But at the same time I'm triggered, like it was bam, instant. And so I do raise my voice to a degree, but not yelling or anything. And I said to him, I don't think it would have been better if you'd have married her, because considering I was never not neat, is that what I'm trying to say? I was always neat. And you thought I wasn't. All that would have happened if you had ended up in a relationship with her was you trying to convince her that she's not. And she is very neat, but they live a very minimalist lifestyle compared to us. I have a husband who likes to shop and he likes to spend, and he does a fair bit of online shopping. Like next thing he'll just be texting me, go, there's a package coming today. And I'm like, great, where are we going to fit this thing? So they live far more sparse than we do. I do like how they live because I would like to have less stuff. But when you've got a hubby who's kind of a bit of a compulsive shopper, you get what you get. But aside from that, I'm not messier than them. I'm not messier than her. So yeah, him saying that kind of agitated me. So then I go quiet again, brooding as I do. And he's just driving along and his thought processes are different. He's just flitting from one thought to the next, and then he raises some other subject. And then we get onto the subject of our ASD son. And he is brutal to our ASD son in conversations with me, possibly in some conversations with the son as well. The son is taking a 2-year gap year. I'm not impressed by that, but at the same time, I'm fully understanding of it. He's suffering from anxiety and petrification. He can't move. He's really, really struggling. And I'm understanding because he's on the spectrum. He's got issues that he's trying to face and work through. Hubby, on the other hand, is on the spectrum but in a different way. Cannot fathom the issues that our son is facing. Thinks he's just lazy and won't do anything and isn't going to achieve anything and da 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 da. We've gotten to the point, all of us, everyone in the house has gotten to the point where we don't want to have another conversation with hubby about how terrible our son is. It's redundant, it's annoying, he's not working through issues. He's not being sympathetic. He's being really judgmental and awful and critical and, yeah, yuck. So he starts talking about that again, and I just go quiet. Because I'm like, again, I don't want to have this conversation with you where you bag out our son because he's not like you and he's not doing things on your time frame. And somehow or another I turn the conversation around where we start talking about the things that I know about our son. And he says to me, how come you know all that? He doesn't talk to me about that. I know. Because you're brutal to him. Why would he want to approach you about anything? I said to him, you need to foster a relationship with your children. You have to ask them how they're doing. You can't just go up to them and go, you're failing at this, you suck. And okay, they're not the words he uses. I'm paraphrasing. You have to ask them about them. You have to ask them about their interests. You have to get to know them as people. Learn who they are, learn what they like, tell them your funny childhood stories, hear about their funny stories, fully interact and embrace them as separate and amazing and interesting beings. And he just won't do that. He doesn't do that with the children at all. He's just constantly, you know, how'd you go on your test? If you passed, you're good. If you failed, you're getting a lecture. So he's not a whole lot of joy for the children to be interacting with. And so him sort of having these shots at the son who's on the spectrum, he doesn't know him. He hasn't had a conversation with him to find out yay or nay. And on that note, I will just interject in this video to talk about our counsellor. She's really good. She deals with people on the spectrum. But she gave hubby a little bit of disturbing advice. She told him he needs to crack down on our son and make sure that he doesn't spend his life just whittling away and doing nothing. And I mean, that in itself is not disturbing advice. What's disturbing about it is the very first time she raised it several counselling sessions ago, I said to her, it's okay, I've got this. Because hubby's way of dealing with it is extreme. Anyway, she has mentioned it to him several more times when I haven't been there. And sure enough, he's coming back and being really extreme. Really aggressive in his treatment towards the son who's not achieving much. And I don't think that's what the counsellor means when she says that you have to tackle this issue head on. There are ways and means, and not the way that hubby's going to do it like a bull out of a gate. Anyway, so that was sort of our drive up. The rest of the drive was sort of relatively quiet because I do go quiet. I try to have sort of conversations with him. They go a bit pear-shaped because he'll say things that trigger me, or he'll have repetitive conversations, or he'll start complaining about a family member, and I don't really care. I don't want to bag out these people. I'm not interested in doing that. But after that, the rest of the trip was pretty good. We went on our hike. We stayed overnight in one of the hotels there, and then we drove back, and the drive back was even more quiet because I just didn't want to do those conversations with him anymore. Anyway, that was our trip away. I just wanted to have a bit of a discussion with you about how the drive goes and how the conversations go. And then you're stuck in a car with this person, you're feeling testy. That's always fun. Anyway, drop a comment below. Do you go on car trips with your partner? Do you find these conversations happen the same way that ours do? Can you relate to this? Love to hear from you. Comment below, and thank you for so much for taking the time to watch this video. I think that came out wrong.